My true story from Texas. My son said, "You're just a bill we forgot to pay." My dear ones, I'm writing this letter with trembling hands and a heart that's finally found peace after so much pain. My name is Dorothy Mae Henderson, and I'm 73 years old. I've lived in the same little yellow house on Magnolia Street in Beaumont, Texas, for 47 years. This is my story, one I never thought I'd have the courage to tell, but one that needs to be shared so other women might recognize their own worth before it's too late. When my beloved Harold passed away 6 years ago on a cold February morning, I thought my world had ended completely. We'd been married for 45 beautiful years, and suddenly I was alone in a house that felt too big, too quiet, too empty. The silence was deafening, suffocating. I'd wake up each morning at exactly 6:30, just like I had for decades, expecting to hear his coffee pot gurgling in the kitchen, expecting to smell his Old Spice aftershave, expecting to feel his gentle kiss on my forehead before he left for his job at the refinery. But there was nothing, just me and my overwhelming grief, rattling around in rooms that held 45 years of memories. The first few months were the hardest. I'd find myself setting 2 places at the dinner table, buying his favorite cereal at the grocery store, turning to tell him something funny I'd seen on television before remembering he wasn't there. Friends from church would stop by with casseroles and kind words, but they had their own lives, their own families. Eventually, the visits became less frequent, the phone calls stopped, and I was truly alone with my sorrow. That's when my son Michael stepped in. Or so I thought. He was 38 then, recently divorced from his wife Sarah after 10 years of marriage. He'd been living in a small apartment across town, working construction, trying to rebuild his life after the divorce. I hadn't seen much of him during his marriage. Sarah never liked me much, always made excuses when I invited them for Sunday dinner or holidays. But now, suddenly, there he was, sitting at my kitchen table where his father used to read the morning paper, looking at me with what seemed like genuine concern. "Mom," he said, his voice soft and caring in a way I hadn't heard since he was a child. "Why don't I move back in? Just temporarily, you understand. Help you with the house, keep you company, maybe help with some of the maintenance Dad used to handle. We can help each other through this difficult time." I remember how my heart leaped at the suggestion, how hope bloomed in my chest for the first time since Harold's funeral. Here was my boy, my only child, the baby I'd carried for 9 months and raised with such love and devotion, offering to fill the terrible emptiness that had consumed me since losing my husband. I said yes before he'd even finished asking, tears streaming down my face with gratitude and relief. Michael moved in that very weekend, bringing his clothes, his big screen television, his gaming system, and what I thought would be the comfort of family. For the first few months, it truly felt like a blessing from above. We'd eat dinner together at the dining room table, him telling me about his day while I listened with rapt attention, grateful just to have someone to talk to. We'd watch the evening news together, sometimes sharing a bowl of popcorn like we used to when he was little. He'd listen to my stories about his father, about the early days of our marriage, about the funny things that had happened at the elementary school where I'd worked as a secretary for 30 years. Those first months, I felt like I had my son back, the sweet, caring boy who used to bring me dandelions from the yard and tell me I was the prettiest mom in the world. He'd help me carry groceries, reach things from high shelves, even fix the leaky faucet in the guest bathroom that had been dripping for months. I'd cook his favorite meals, fried chicken, meatloaf, chocolate chip cookies, and watch his face light up like it had when he was 10 years old. But somewhere along the way, something shifted. It happened so gradually, so subtly, that I didn't notice it at first. Like watching someone age. You don't see the changes day by day, but suddenly you realize everything is different. Michael's temporary stay became permanent without any discussion. His contributions to the household bills became sporadic, then stopped altogether. His help with maintenance around the house, the very reason he'd originally given for moving in, became requests for me to hire professionals while he disappeared on weekends with friends I'd never met. The first red flag should have been the bills. When Michael moved in, I'd assumed we'd split the utilities, maybe the groceries. But when I mentioned it after the first month, he looked at me with such hurt in his eyes. "Mom," I'm between jobs right now. Construction work is slow in the winter. I thought you understood that. And I did understand. I had Harold's life insurance money, my Social Security, and the small but steady pension from my years at the school. I could afford to carry the load for a while. Besides, this was my son, my flesh and blood. If I couldn't help him when he needed it, what kind of mother would I be? So I paid the bills, all of them. The electricity that seemed to jump dramatically with his big television running all day, the cable bill that tripled when he upgraded to premium channels, the grocery bill that doubled with his appetite and his preference for expensive steaks and beer. I told myself it was temporary, that he'd get back on his feet soon, that this was what families did for each other. The first time he brought a woman home without warning, I was making breakfast in my nightgown and robe. It was a Saturday morning, and I was humming to myself, actually feeling happy for the first time in months. I had my son home, I was useful again, needed again. I heard voices in the living room, Michael's voice and a woman's laughter, and I walked out to find him with a blonde woman about his age, both of them clearly hungover from whatever they'd done the night before. Her makeup was smeared, her dress wrinkled, and she was lounging on my sofa like she owned the place. He didn't introduce her. He didn't explain who she was or why she was there. He just walked past me like I was furniture and said, "Mom, make some extra eggs. And maybe some of that bacon." Then he disappeared into the bathroom, leaving me standing there in my nightgown, staring at this stranger who was examining her nails and acting like I was the intruder. I made the eggs. I made the bacon. I served them on my best china, the set Harold had bought me for our 25th anniversary, and I didn't say anything about the woman or the fact that he'd brought her to my house without so much as a phone call. I told myself it was his home, too, that he was a grown man who deserved privacy and companionship. But something twisted in my chest that morning, a small knot of hurt and confusion that I tried to ignore. The woman, Tracy, I learned her name eventually, became a regular fixture in my home. She'd eat my food, use my bathroom, leave her makeup scattered across my vanity in the hall bathroom. She'd walk around in skimpy clothes, making herself comfortable, while I felt like I had to ask permission to use my own kitchen. Michael never asked if it was okay. He never introduced her properly, or included me in their conversations. I became the invisible woman in my own home, the ghost who cooked and cleaned and paid the bills while they lived their lives around me. Then came the financial requests. They started small, reasonable even. "Mom, I'm a little short this month. Could you cover my car payment? I'll pay you back next week. Mom, I need new work boots for this job. Can you help me out? It's an investment in my future. Mom, Tracy and I want to take a weekend trip to Galveston. Could you spot me a couple hundred? We both need a break from all this stress." I said yes every time. What else could I do? This was my son, the baby I'd nursed through fevers and nightmares, the little boy I'd taught to ride a bike and helped with homework. I'd given him everything I had my whole life. My time, my energy, my love, my money. Why would I stop now when he needed me most? But the requests became demands. The gratitude became expectation. The "I'll pay you back" became "you can afford it." And slowly, gradually, the son I'd raised, the boy who used to bring me flowers and tell me his secrets, became a stranger who lived in my house and treated me like an inconvenience. The worst part wasn't the money, though that stung. It wasn't even the disrespect, though that cut deep. It was the loneliness. I was more alone living with Michael and Tracy than I'd been when the house was empty after Harold's death. At least then, I could grieve properly. I could cry when I needed to, talk to Harold's picture, feel my feelings without someone rolling their eyes or turning up the television to drown out my sobs. With Michael there, I had to pretend everything was fine. I had to smile when he brought strangers to dinner without warning, had to clean up after their parties, had to lie awake at night listening to him and Tracy arguing or laughing or doing things I didn't want to think about in the room that used to be his childhood bedroom, the room where I'd read him bedtime stories and checked for monsters under the bed. I started volunteering at St. Mary's Church just to have somewhere to go, somewhere I felt valued. Sister Margaret, our pastor's wife, would ask me how I was doing, and I'd smile and say, "Fine, just fine. Michael's such a blessing, helping me through this difficult time." but I could see the concern in her eyes, the way she watched me getting thinner, more tired, more withdrawn. I wasn't fooling anyone, least of all myself. The breaking point came on a Tuesday in March. I'd been feeling poorly for about a week. Nothing serious, just a cold that wouldn't go away. My throat was sore, my head was pounding, and I felt weak and dizzy. I'd mentioned it to Michael several times, hoping he might offer to pick up some medicine or even just ask how I was feeling. But he was too busy complaining about his foreman at work, too focused on his own problems to notice that his mother was sick. That morning, I'd stayed in bed later than usual. My head was pounding so hard I could barely think, and when I tried to get up, the room spun around me. I lay there listening to the sounds of life happening in my house without me. The television blaring, music playing, voices talking and laughing. Around 10 o'clock, I heard them in the kitchen. Michael and Tracy, talking loudly over coffee and what smelled like the bacon I'd bought for Sunday breakfast. I put on my robe and shuffled to the kitchen, hoping to find some sympathy, maybe even some of that breakfast they were enjoying. My bacon, from my refrigerator, cooked in my skillet, eaten at my table. But when I walked in, their conversation stopped abruptly. They looked at me like I was interrupting something important, like I was intruding on their private moment in my own kitchen. "Morning," I said quietly, my voice hoarse from my sore throat. I moved toward the coffee pot, hoping for some warmth, some caffeine to help with my headache. "Oh, great," Tracy muttered under her breath, not even trying to hide her annoyance. "Here comes the landlord." I pretended not to hear her, but Michael laughed. Actually laughed at his girlfriend's cruel joke about his sick mother. "Relax, babe," he said, reaching over to squeeze her hand. "She's harmless. Just ignore her." They went back to their conversation, something about a concert they wanted to attend that weekend, tickets that cost more than my monthly grocery budget. I stood there in my own kitchen, feeling like an intruder, listening to them make plans with money I knew Michael didn't have, but would undoubtedly ask me to provide. Then Tracy said something that made my blood run cold, something that would haunt me for months to come. "I don't understand why you don't just put her in a home. She's got the money for it, and then we could have this whole place to ourselves. It's not like she needs all this space." I waited for Michael to defend me. I waited for him to tell this woman that I was his mother, that this was my house, that I'd sacrificed everything for him. I waited for the son I'd raised to show some loyalty, some love, some basic human decency. Instead, he sighed heavily, like the whole situation was just too much trouble. "It's complicated, Trace. She's got nowhere else to go, and she's already so depressed about Dad. I can't just abandon her. But she's so clingy," Tracy continued, gesturing with her fork. "And she's always watching us, listening to our conversations. It's creepy, like she's waiting for us to include her or something." "I know," Michael said, and his voice was tired, annoyed. "But she pays all the bills. She's got Dad's insurance money just sitting in the bank. She's basically just, I don't know, like a bill we forgot to pay." The coffee mug slipped from my hands and shattered on the tile floor. The sound echoed through the kitchen like a gunshot, and both of them turned to stare at me. I stood there in my nightgown, surrounded by broken ceramic and spilled coffee, and felt something inside me shatter just as completely. A bill we forgot to pay. That's what 45 years of motherhood had earned me. That's what sacrificing my own comfort, my own peace, my own dignity had gotten me. I was a bill, an obligation, a burden, something to be managed and endured rather than loved and cherished. "Mom?" Michael said, and for a moment he sounded like the little boy who used to run to me when he was hurt. "Are you okay? Did you burn yourself?" But I wasn't okay. I wasn't okay at all. I was drowning in my own life, suffocating under the weight of being unloved in my own home. I was a ghost, haunting my own existence, invisible to the people I'd given everything to. I didn't answer him. I couldn't. Instead, I turned and walked back to my bedroom, closed the door, and sat on the edge of my bed. I could hear them talking in hushed tones, probably wondering if I'd heard what they'd said. I could hear Tracy laughing about something and Michael telling her to keep it down, but not because he was concerned about my feelings, because he was worried about his comfortable living situation. I sat there for hours, staring at Harold's picture on my nightstand. "What would you do?" I whispered to his smiling face. "What would you tell me to do, honey?" But I already knew. Harold had been a proud man, a man who never let anyone disrespect his family. He'd loved Michael, but he'd never tolerated this kind of behavior. He'd have put a stop to it years ago. That afternoon, while Michael was at work and Tracy was wherever she spent her days, probably spending my money at the mall, I made a phone call, then another, then several more. I called my lawyer, my bank, my realtor. I called my sister Ruby in Oklahoma, who'd been begging me to come visit for months. "Dorothy," she said when she heard my voice. "Are you all right? You sound strange, honey. What's wrong?" "I'm fine, Ruby. I'm finally fine. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Remember when you said I could come stay with you anytime for as long as I wanted? Did you mean it?" "Of course I meant it. Dorothy, what's going on? You're scaring me." I told her. I told her everything. About Michael's disrespect, about Tracy's cruel comments, about feeling like a stranger in my own home. I told her about the broken coffee mug and the words that had broken my heart into a million pieces. "Pack your bags," Ruby said without hesitation. "I'm driving down there this weekend to get you. Don't you dare change your mind, Dorothy May. You've been everyone else's doormat for too long." "It's not that simple," I protested. "This is my house, my life. I can't just—" "Yes, you can," she interrupted, her voice fierce with love and determination. "Dorothy, you've been everyone else's caretaker your whole life. You took care of Mama until she died. You took care of Harold through his illness, and now you're taking care of a grown man who treats you like garbage. When do you get to be taken care of? When do you get to matter?" That night, I sat at my kitchen table, the same table where Michael had asked to move in, where I'd made countless meals for him and his friends, where I'd written checks to pay his bills and buy his luxuries, and I wrote a letter. I wrote it carefully, choosing each word like it mattered, because it did. This letter would change everything. "Michael, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. I've decided to sell the house and move to Oklahoma to live with Ruby. The realtor will be in touch about showings, and I've arranged for you to have 30 days to find other accommodations. I want you to know that I heard what you said about me being like a bill you forgot to pay." Those words hurt more than you'll ever know, but they also opened my eyes to something I should have seen long ago. You're right. I have been like a bill. I've been paying for your mistakes, your choices, your comfort, your girlfriend's entertainment for years. But unlike a bill, I'm not something you can ignore or put off until it's convenient. I'm your mother. I gave you life, carried you for 9 months, raised you with love and sacrifice. I taught you to walk, to read, to be kind to others. I cheered at your little league games, helped you with homework, dried your tears when Sarah broke your heart. I opened my home to you when you needed help, and I've supported you financially and emotionally for 6 years. I've asked for nothing in return except basic respect and kindness. You couldn't give me even that. I'm tired of being invisible in my own home. I'm tired of feeling like I'm in the way of your life with Tracy. I'm tired of being lonely while surrounded by people who treat me like I don't matter. I'm tired of being grateful for scraps of attention from my own son. The house will be sold within the month. I've left enough money in the joint account to cover your moving expenses and 2 months' rent wherever you decide to go, but after that, you're on your own. It's time for both of us to learn what independence really means. I love you, Michael. I always have and I always will. You're my son, and nothing will ever change that. But I love myself too, and I won't let anyone, not even you, treat me like I'm worthless. I deserve better than to be someone's forgotten obligation. I hope someday you'll understand why I had to leave. I hope you'll learn to value the people who love you before it's too late. I hope you'll become the man I raised you to be. Take care of yourself, son. I'll be praying for you. With love and hard-earned wisdom, Mom. I left the letter on his pillow and spent the rest of the night packing. I took my clothes, my photo albums, my few pieces of jewelry that had belonged to my mother. I took Harold's wedding ring and the watch I'd given him for our last anniversary. I left everything else. The furniture I'd carefully chosen over the years, the dishes we'd eaten from for decades, the curtains I'd sewn by hand. They were just things, and I was finally ready to let them go. Ruby arrived Saturday morning in her old pickup truck, just as I'd finished loading my Honda with everything that really mattered. She took one look at my face and pulled me into the tightest hug I'd had in years. "You're doing the right thing," she whispered fiercely. "You're finally doing the right thing, sister." We drove away from Magnolia Street without looking back. I'd spent 47 years in that house, but it wasn't home anymore. Home was supposed to be where people loved you, where you felt safe and valued. I hadn't felt any of those things in years. Michael came home that evening to find the house empty except for his belongings and my letter. He called me 17 times that night. I didn't answer. I couldn't. I wasn't ready to hear his excuses, his promises, his angry words. Tracy called too, screaming into my voicemail about being abandoned and left high and dry, as if I owed her something after months of disrespect. I deleted her messages without listening to them completely. The next morning, Michael showed up at Ruby's house. He'd driven all night, 8 hours, and he looked terrible, unshaven, exhausted, desperate. His eyes were red-rimmed and his hands shook as he knocked on Ruby's door. "Mom," he said when I answered, "we need to talk, please. I know I messed up, but we can fix this." "There's nothing to fix," I said quietly, my voice steadier than I felt. "I heard everything I needed to hear." "I didn't mean it," he said, tears starting to fall. I was talking, just saying stuff. I didn't mean it." "Yes, you did," I said, and something in my voice made him step back. "And that's okay. Maybe it's time we were both honest about what this relationship had become." He tried to argue, tried to convince me to come home, promised things would be different. But I could see Tracy sitting in his car in Ruby's driveway, scrolling through her phone, bored and impatient. I could see the future stretching out ahead of us, more of the same disrespect, more of the same loneliness, more of the same heartbreak. "I love you, Michael," I said, "but I can't live like that anymore." "I won't." That was 8 months ago. The house on Magnolia Street sold quickly. Apparently, it was exactly what a young family was looking for. I used the money to buy a small cottage near Ruby's place, about 20 minutes from the little town where she's lived for 30 years. It's got 2 bedrooms, a kitchen with a window over the sink, and a garden where I grow tomatoes and roses. There's a front porch with a swing where I drink my morning coffee and watch the sunrise. It's smaller than my old house, but it's mine. Really, truly mine. I've made new friends here. Real friends who invite me to lunch and remember my birthday. I volunteer at the local library twice a week, helping adults learn to read. There's something beautiful about watching someone's face light up when they read their first sentence, their first paragraph, their first book. I've joined a book club where we discuss everything from romance novels to biographies. I've started quilting again, something I'd given up years ago when I was too busy taking care of everyone else. I've even started dating, something I never thought I'd do again. His name is Frank Mitchell, and he's a retired teacher who brings me flowers every Friday and tells me I'm beautiful. At 73, I'm learning what it feels like to be courted, to be valued, to be loved without conditions or expectations. Michael and I talk sometimes, though not often. He's had to learn some hard lessons about independence and responsibility. He and Tracy broke up about 3 months after I left. Apparently, she wasn't interested in a man who couldn't provide the lifestyle she wanted. He's living in a small apartment now, struggling to make ends meet without my financial support. It's been hard for him, I'm sure, but I think it's been good for him too. Last month, he called with news I'd been hoping to hear for years. "Mom, I got a promotion at work. They made me a supervisor. I wanted you to know. I wanted you to be proud of me." "I am proud of you," I said, and I meant it. I've always been proud of you, Michael, even when I was disappointed in your choices. "Mom?" he said, and his voice cracked like it used to when he was little and had done something wrong. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for how I treated you. I was selfish and cruel, and I took you for granted. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I want you to know that I understand now. I understand what I put you through. You're my son," I said, tears streaming down my face. "You'll always be my son, and I'll always love you. But love doesn't mean accepting disrespect, Michael. It took me too long to learn that lesson." We talked for over an hour that day. Really talked. like we hadn't in years. He told me about his struggles, his fears, his regrets. He told me about the night he came home to find my letter, about how he'd sat in that empty house and cried for hours. He told me about learning to budget, to cook, to take care of himself. I told him about my new life, my new friends, my newfound happiness. "I'm proud of the man you're becoming," I told him before we hung up. "It's never too late to change, son. It's never too late to become who you're meant to be." Today is Harold's birthday. I visited his grave this morning, bringing the yellow roses he always loved. I told him about everything that's happened, about the choice I made to leave, about the life I've built here, about Michael's growth and our slowly healing relationship. "I think you'd like Frank," I said to the headstone. "He's not you, my love, but he's kind. He makes me laugh. He makes me feel like I matter again." As I was leaving the cemetery, I saw a young woman sitting beside a fresh grave, sobbing. She looked lost, broken, like I'd felt all those years ago. I stopped and asked if she was okay. "My husband died last month," she said through her tears. "I don't know how to do this without him. I don't know how to be alone." I sat down beside her on the bench. "You don't have to figure it all out today," I said gently. "You just have to get through today, and tomorrow you'll figure out how to get through tomorrow." We talked for a while about grief, about love, about the long journey of healing. I gave her my phone number and told her to call me any time. "When you're ready," I said, "I'll tell you about something I learned the hard way, that there's a difference between being alone and being lonely, and that sometimes the people who love us most are the ones who can hurt us deepest." She nodded, clutching my number like a lifeline. "How do you know when it's time to let go of something that's hurting you?" "When holding on hurts more than letting go," I said. "When you realize that love without respect isn't really love at all." As I drove home to my little cottage, I thought about that young woman, about Michael, about all the choices we make in the name of love. I thought about the woman I used to be, the one who accepted scraps and called it a feast, who confused sacrifice with love, who forgot that she mattered too. I'm not that woman anymore. I'm 73 years old, and I'm finally learning who I am when I'm not defined by other people's needs. I'm learning that it's okay to choose myself, to demand respect, to walk away from situations that diminish my spirit. My son called me a bill he forgot to pay. Those words shattered my heart, but they also set me free. They reminded me that I am not an obligation or an afterthought. I am Dorothy Mae Henderson, a woman who has loved deeply, sacrificed greatly, and deserved so much better than I was accepting. Tonight, I'm sitting on my porch swing, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. Frank is coming for dinner. I've made his favorite pot roast with carrots and potatoes. Ruby is stopping by later with her famous apple pie and stories about her grandchildren. My house is small, but it's full of love, real love, the kind that lifts you up instead of tearing you down. I'm no longer anyone's forgotten Bill. I'm Dorothy Mae, and I'm finally truly home. With love and hard-earned wisdom, Grandma Dorothy.